You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. So like I said, we will begin in South Africa and find out whether or not the unification of Africa is in trouble. As you heard Bob Marley, remind us whether what is going on is right or not. But is it xenophobic, or it's not anything new? It's something that we see around, but we don't call it xenophobic. That's what Thabo Mbeki thinks, because in a number of times these things have happened in South Africa, and he, when he had the opportunity, suggested that there are things that have been labeled xenophobic that clearly are not. He points out to situations where there are criminals, in fact, known to be Nigerian criminals who got attacked, and yet the newspapers described the situation as xenophobic attacks, which was not correct. He has referred to a situation where it was clearly a matter of, survival. People in business, just as we have seen recently happening, particularly in the Swami magazine. And the newspapers labeled it as xenophobic. He doesn't think that it is always the case. Is this one of that, or a clear case of xenophobia? I guess this morning, and I'm not doing my take, I donate my 5 minutes to my guests to see how much time we can have on the issues. Really packed. My guest this morning, Yabuabing Asamoah, is a lawyer. He's MP Adentan and Director of Communications of the New Patriotic Party. Also here in the studio is Dr. Eric Odro Asai. He's a lawyer, governance expert. And to my extreme left is John Abdullahi Jinapo. Is MP Yape Kusogu and a member Finance Committee of Parliament. Welcoming, I suppose, for the first time on the show is a colleague lawyer, Liman A. Mohammed. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for joining us on Newsfile.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Right. Okay, so let's hear from His Excellency George A.C. Boateng, Ghana's High Commissioner in South Africa, and then Cyril Ramaphosa, President of South Africa, has a few comments also about the developing situation there, and then Lulu Kiwangna, who is South Africa's High Commissioner to Ghana, on the xenophobic attacks. Let's hear them briefly.
Whatever grievance and concerns that people have, we need to handle it in a democratic way. We need to handle it by discussing concerns and problems that we may have. And we've done so very well in the past on a number of other very difficult issues. And this is precisely what we should continue doing. So there is just no justification whatsoever for any South African to go out of their way to attack people from other countries. We need to act in a way where we give respect to people from other countries and show them that they are welcome to be in our country. We need to deal with our own problems in a way where we sit down and discuss those issues with the various structures that we have. We cannot accept sense that South Africans do not welcome Africans or other people from other countries. We cannot do that, because we are welcomed in other countries. Right now, we are part of the whole continent having inaugurated the Africa Free Trade Area Agreement. So our drivers are now going to be afraid to drive vehicles in other countries. And there's just no justification whatsoever for people who have a sense that their jobs are being taken by people from foreign lands to attack them, to destroy properties, and actually to kill them.
We all know the happenings, the current happenings, very disturbing, very unfortunate attacks on foreign nationals. I appeal to my fellow Ghanaians to monitor situations carefully. Those who live around prone violence areas must take caution. And then those also living around hotspots, what I would describe as places I would describe as hotspots, must also take caution and monitor movement of most probably assailant. When there is any need for us to put in place contingency measures, I will take it as contingency measures. Be assured that they will do it. I have capable, able members of staff who in all situations are ready to work. So if there should be any need of any contingency measure, I will put in place.
Look at the US dollar is coming down. You look at the CD is coming down. You look at the rand is coming down. It's the economy. It's the economy in the continent. It's, you know, our economies will fluctuate, but at this point in time, petrol is rising, the food prices are rising in South Africa. So people are feeling the pinch. So it is true that there is that stress that is caused by, and also we have high unemployment rate that is caused by poverty and also the rising cost of living.
All right, so Luluwana and Cyril Ramaphosa and George A. Sibwating, of course you have followed the Ghana's Ministry of Foreign Affairs issue a statement. We have seen the reactions, particularly from Nigeria. Nigeria appears to be leading the way because of, in fact, most of the people are deemed to be affected, are deemed to be Nigerians. Okay, so let me begin with Dr. Eriko Drosai, and very briefly, what do you make of what is happening? And when Ramaphosa speaks, I don't hear the way forward. I hear him only express concerns.
Let me say good morning to our listeners and viewers. Samson, it is very disturbing. Kwame Nkrumah once said that the independence of Africa is not in total. I mean, we will not be able to achieve that liberation until it is linked to the total liberation of the entire African continent. And Africans are brothers. A Nigerian is an African. A South African is an African. A Ghanaian is an African. So if people start saying that South Africans are attacking foreigners, who are the foreigners? The name of the country is South Africa, southern of Africa. So Africa should be treated as one country. It's rather unfortunate this has happened, and this is not the first time. So I think it's about the government of South Africa sensitizing, educating, and explaining things to its citizens that at this point in time, we are a global village. We are one continent, but one country. It should be easy for somebody to move from South Africa to any other country and do business and do well in an atmosphere of freedom. But if these things continue, then what invariably you are telling us is that we should be able to protect our territorial boundaries, which is not the best. So my view is that the president of South Africa, when I heard him speaking, like you said, I was not hearing him coming up with solutions. I think this requires AU to play a leading role in resolving the issue. This requires the leaders of Africa getting Africans to understand that they are brothers. Let us link our economies together.
What the role that you expect AU to play, what form should it take? What should they do? What should AU do?
You see, what I want AU to do now is to bring the leaders together and get the leaders to develop a comprehensive roadmap, medium to short term, towards engaging and sensitizing their people to understand the concept of globalization and the fact that we live in a global village. That education has not gone down well with a lot of people. I want to believe that some of the people in South Africa still live in the apartheid era. When I was young, I stayed with them at the International Students Hostel. My mother was working with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, so I used to go there. We hosted them well, a student from Namibia. We hosted them well, and we lived together. Within that period, there was no foreigner. We treated South Africans, Namibians as Ghanaians. Today, why are you treating other people as foreigners? That concept must be explained to them, and that is the role of AU in this particular matter.
The popular youth leader in that country agrees with Lulu that this is about, survival economics, and that for as long as the economies of the countries are not improved, you will have this happened. Is there a lesson in here? Because clearly South Africa is doing a lot better, developing a lot better, and so for many people, it is fair to say that if your chance and dream of going to Europe eludes you, the next destination should be South Africa.
Sometimes I disagree with that school of thought. When you look at the economic fundamentals and you look at the baselines, South Africa started well than countries like Ghana. Let us ask ourselves, after apartheid, what have been the value addition? If you compare where Ghana was when South Africa had their independence after the apartheid and where South Africa is now, it is not to say that they are doing any way better than other countries, to the extent that somebody will say that if the way to Europe eludes me, if I get to South Africa, I'm okay. No, if you are in Ghana, you will be okay. I can agree that the leaders of that country has a lot of work to do by way of improving the economy, creating a lot of jobs. But they should also have some understanding that we are applying the principles of good governance and democracy.
The streets of Cape Town don't look any different from those in London.
No, but I've been to Cape Town. Something, when you go to East Legon, things you see in East Legon are the same things you see in Cape Town. Indeed, I slept in Protea, and we used to have Protea Hotel in East Legon. So for me, I think Ghanaians must know that Ghana is good. Yeah. The only thing is that our leaders must improve their systems to ensure that at least we will be happy. Okay. And the leaders of South Africa must also send a signal to their people that you don't take the law into your own hands. They've gone to sign protocols, agreements, and conventions that binds them to ensure that we respect the rights of all people.
Right. So, how do you appreciate what is going on, and from your viewpoint, how do we avoid this? Because it's recurring.
Good morning. First of all, let me issue a disclaimer. I'm not Kweku Baako. I'm sitting in Kweku Baako's seat.
Okay. Kweku is around. He's watching you.
Is he?
Yes.
So please, Kweku, I'm not taking your seat over. It's a heavy seat.
At least
I don't have any documents. Just one book.
You have documents.
Just one book.
One big book.
Okay, correct. One big book.
But I identify with most of the things that Prof just said. See, let's put this in context. South Africa as a nation has been isolated for a very long time from the rest of the world in all spheres, economic, sanctions, as well as cultural, including sport. So there's a certain sense of isolationism that is inbuilt in their DNA, a bit of it. And then, of course, you also have the international economic situation that impacts all countries across a certain band. Lower income, lower middle income, higher income. You have these bands with certain basic indices, which unfortunately hits most of the African countries. But I think to a very large extent, where I support the statements made by Dr. Moses, it's about the AU's role. The AU hasn't done enough. And please, when you say what should the AU do, I say the AU shouldn't do what the OAU did. For 50 years, the OAU did nothing. Now we become AU, and we shouldn't.
Nothing.
Oh yes, there are highlights, but what did it achieve in terms of what we set out to do? Did it achieve any major political integration? Did it achieve political stability across the different regimes, different ethnic groupings, different geographical characteristics within the continent? Very little in that regard.
The Nigerians in Ghana who accuse Ghanaian authorities of not following the protocols that require them to move freely and also to trade.
I was coming there. So I'm saying that it is time we recognized the joint imperatives of the political process we are trying to achieve through the AU, and now the trade backing that we have with the African Continental Free Trade Area. Trade goes with people moving. People will move. And if people move, we can't say that certain kinds of people are different from us, and therefore they cannot trade, they cannot work, they cannot labor to produce the goods that are supposed to make all of us comfortable. Because essentially, if you manage the process well, you have an aggregation where consumption grows and everybody gets a bigger share of a pie that would have been smaller. Okay. For example, South African economy is supposed to be one of the largest in Africa, including Nigeria. If ShopRite and other, oh, I'm sorry I mentioned the name, I shouldn't have, but if South African investments don't go beyond South Africa, they will remain confined and very little. In Ghana now, when we talk about doing things industrially, we use figures across West Africa. A 250 to 350 million basket of potential market. That's what we do. We don't say the 30 million in Ghana. Otherwise, so many enterprises would set up in Ghana would not be competitive because the market is too small. And as I speak, we have a rule which allows certain companies to establish in Ghana and export duty-free under the free zone principle. It recognizes the fact that we have to internationalize business. And if you internationalize business, people will move. So it is time AU began to implement NEPAD. Our biggest weakness is implementation. It's about the economy. NEPAD is supposed to be a full continental integrated program about bringing up our economy to the point where it includes transportation, it includes infrastructure delivery, it includes everything. And yet, after launching NEPAD and a few months of having it going and setting up the secretariat, we have, as usual, left it lying in the background. So we need to be consistent on the basic principles, which are that it was in the interest of Africa, given our lack of technology, given our basic skill setbacks, given where we sit in the world, that we cooperate more. We try and align politically even more, because democracy in itself has its own challenges. We are trying to develop in a situation where everything is open and very fluid. It's very, very fluid. So that democracy also gives rise to social identity movements. People want to be recognized for who they are in democracy. And sometimes their needs as a distinct social group conflicts with the larger groups that are around, even within particular nations. And it's not just ethnic groupings, it's also economic groupings, like the Swami magazine, spare parts dealers, and it's all social identity. We are the magazine traders, and now Nigerians are taking over our trade. We magazine traders won't agree. Meanwhile, the rest of Ghana is uncomfortable about the situation. So the notion and concept of political expansion, integration, as well as the corollary issues associated with trade on an international scale, demand that the continental organizations we've put up their game.
Right.
Let me just conclude on a short matter.
Yeah.
The humanitarian attempt by OAU in supporting the ouster in Uganda set a brilliant precedent, which was replicated in ECOWAS, when the world now agreed that sovereignty could be broken legitimately by other countries invading to uphold and protect humanitarian rights. That one is a major event that has helped, indeed, to stabilize elective democracy in Africa. Because before then, all these dictators felt that you couldn't cross their border and they could do what they liked. But the OAU did that bold thing, supported the invasion of Uganda through Tanzania, and were able to also use that to stabilize West Africa with the issues in Sierra Leone and Monrovia and Liberia and all that. Right. That is something that we must continue into the economic sphere.
Thank you. Now, Julius Malema was referring to him earlier in previous situations and how he keeps looking at this issue as a South African opposition politician. He says, our anger is directed at wrong people. Like all of us, our African brothers and sisters are selling their cheap labor for survival. Let me quote you this Nigerian musician, Davido, and he says that if our country good, within we go find go Southie. That's two clear scenarios put together in one.
Thank you, and good morning, Samson, and to your viewers and listeners. Good morning once again. This is really an interesting and worrying subject which we are discussing this morning. And I would like to also quote South African political icon Oliver Tambo. That was during the apartheid. He said, and I quote, "We are not fighting against people. We are fighting against a system." And I think this is in context with the two quotations that you have made. I think the fight should go beyond people. The fight should be contextualized within a system, and it's the system that is creating these challenges. Because if you look at research from XenoWatch, African Center for Migration and Society, this research was from 2006 to 2018. And it was based on threats, attacks, and killings against foreigners in South Africa. And it will be interesting to note that in 2008, we recorded the highest attacks with about 60 deaths in South Africa. 2015 was same. Then we have 2017 and 2018. So clearly, there's a big problem, which I believe predates apartheid. We are all aware of the struggle for apartheid and the role other Africans played in terms of bringing South Africa where it is now. A lot of African countries served as a host for most of the iconic leaders that supported that struggle. We are aware of Nelson Mandela, that was in prison for 27 years. A lot of African countries supported in that struggle. We are also aware of Steve Biko, who also died in prison under mysterious circumstances because of the struggle for emancipation. All these fights were supported by African leaders. And like Oliver Tambo said, the fight should not be directed at people. It should be directed at the institutions. What do we mean by it should be directed at the institutions? If you look at the situation in South Africa now, we are told that South Africa has a population of about 58 million. That is from UN source. Out of the 58 million, about 4 million are immigrants. 4 million are immigrants, and the 4 million represent 1% of the population. So clearly, you see that the issue has to do with having the right framework and institutions in place, because I have heard a High Commissioner mention that most of the skirmishes that is ongoing there now is due to the fact that foreigners are taking the job of the nationals. And I asked myself, 1% of the total population, which is 4 million out of 58 million, clearly shows that that cannot be the problem. We need to be able to make a research to be able to find out what the challenges are. And like I indicated earlier on about the XenoWatch report, which spanned from 2006 to 2018, that clearly showed the threats, attacks, and killings against foreigners. I don't think we have any report or we have any research to tell us what the challenges are. And like I said, clearly, we have to tackle the institutions, like Oliver Tambo said. So I would recommend that we need to ensure that we do proper research to be able to unravel what the underlying causes are. Because if you don't understand what the causes are, what will you be fighting? And it's not surprising that from apartheid to post-apartheid, we're still having these challenges.
There's an example that Thabo Mbeki gave. He said, South Africans, for example, are selling cigarettes and they are selling in the pack, the whole pack. And many people can't afford. But there are other nationals, foreign African nationals who are there. They buy the pack and they sell by a stick. So any ordinary person can afford to buy the cigarette. Now, because they do it that way, they seem to be progressing quite fast in their business, endeavor. Then the South African who says if you can't afford to buy the entire pack, get off, begins to hate them because they are progressing. So I suspect if somebody at his level, this is how he diagnoses the situation, then they clearly understand what is going on. He also points out a situation where he says it's pure criminal activity by a group of other African nationals who are committing crime. So they know what it is. They may not need any further research.
Thank you very much, Samson, for this intervention. I think I agree with you, but like Oliver Tampo said, the issue has to do with institutions. And I feel that they have to do more in terms of research to be able to come out with policies that will be able to resolve some of these issues. Like you have mentioned, it's their country, it's a sovereign nation. And they have all the resources to be able to come out with policies to cure it. And that is why I'm of the belief that if they do proper research and able to identify what the challenges are, it will help them in resolving some of these issues. Like you rightly spoke about the tobacco, it means that they have to be able to come out with policies that will be able to resolve this. Okay,
let's hear from John. And John, you know Trevor Noah, and he shares some posts, and people have come to love his perspective on the issue. And among other things, the population of South Africa, he says that whites in South Africa make up almost 9% of the population of South Africa, and they control
the resources,
almost 90%, if you like, of the wealth that is there. So if you attack blacks, you are dealing with the wrong target because blacks or fellow Africans are going through the same survival matters as those who have been doing these things that we continue to condemn. What should happen?
Thank you, Samson.
Is it education that the people don't have? These are the statistics?
Well, like my brother rightly stated, I was also checking some facts from Africa Center for Migration and Society. They have been tracking all these attacks, even right from 1994 till date. And like you said, in 2008 and 2015, it really peaked. So it's becoming systemic. It's not a one-off affair. And so for something that has occurred from 1994 till date, we must know the cause of these challenges. We cannot say that this is the time to begin to determine the cause of it. Understandably, South Africa has gone through some turbulent, difficult situation. In the fight for independence, they've had to go the very brute way. Unlike Ghana, where we use mass mobilization and all kinds of civil action, it would appear that the South African system has had to go through a lot of very difficult, turbulent, violent scenario. And so that is one factor. I break it down to two. It's a matter of poor leadership and poor governance. That's one. Two is an economic problem. So I think that it's governance and leadership, and then two is economic. If you look at South Africa's GDP, I just got 2017 figures, about $350 billion. Ghana's GDP is about 60 billion. South Africa's population is about 58. Ghana's population is about 30. And so give and take, South Africa from population, because normally you just don't look at GDP. You look at GDP and look at the population, look at the per capita, and say that, look, even if China's GDP is 1 billion, they have 1 billion more people to feed. And so if the United States GDP is not even up to 1 billion, and they have just 300 million, if you do the distribution, United States is far better off. So I'm looking at the size of GDP against the population. And then I want to look at the poverty levels in both countries. Extreme poverty in Ghana is about 10%. extreme poverty in South Africa is about 25%. 56% of the population in South Africa lives below the poverty line. And so though Ghana has a much smaller GDP and a bigger problem to contend with, the ordinary Ghanaian is better off than the ordinary South African. And that's where you talked about just about 8% of the population controlling about 90% of the resources. Pretoria, Durban, South Africa, Cape Town, beautiful cities, beautiful than London. I went to South Africa, and that is a personal experience. And then I went to a restaurant to eat. When I got there, I was told I couldn't enter into that restaurant because of my color in the evening. And I told them I could afford. They said, yes, we agree you can afford, but it's reserved for the whites.
Where was this?
In South Africa, in Johannesburg.
Okay.
In Sandton, the center, where Nelson Mandela Square, around that area. And so there's a real problem. South Africans came together in conjunction with Africans, fought and got independence. Now you've gotten independence. What is next? It's economic emancipation. And so South Africans are seeing real wealth, but they cannot feel it, they cannot touch it. And so there's an element of frustration. Now the leadership issue. Leadership in South Africa, in my opinion, have not succeeded in redistributing wealth. They've not succeeded in ensuring that the ordinary South African benefits from the economic might of South Africa. And so even at the political level, you've seen Malema and Co breaking away. You've seen Zuma having his challenges, Thabo Mbeki having his challenges, and Ramaphosa is beginning to experience those same challenges. Until the South African leadership and governance structure accept the fact that, look, they ought to do more to improve the economic well-being of their individuals and citizens, we're going to have this challenge. And so I was very disappointed when the Minister for, I think, Foreign Affairs, Naledi Pandor or so, indicated that they were fighting drug peddlers and all that. How do you fight drug peddlers? By attacking shops of foreigners. These are legitimate businesses they've registered and working. And so I think that, look, yes, AU must have a stake, all of us must have a stake, but the South African governance structure and leadership ought to tackle and take the bull by the horn and admit that a huge percentage of the responsibility rests on them.
Okay.
They should begin to implement policies that will ensure that their people and their citizenry begin to feel that they are part of the system.
Okay.
And you talked about one last thing. The cigarette issue is very critical. It tells you the foreign nationals are being innovative. Look, I was doing a course where the lecturer clearly demonstrated that the ordinary Chinese is 3 times more efficient than the ordinary Ghanaian. And so then what came to mind is that, so what can we do to train the ordinary Ghanaian to be as efficient as the ordinary Chinese? Because the point is, you give the Chinese a job, give 3 Ghanaians a job, the Chinese will finish that same job, and 3 Ghanaians will still be on that job. So it has to do with training. Train them, empower them, and I'm sure we can deal with some of these challenges.
You have the assurance that, and just from 30 seconds, you have the assurance that Ghanaians who are there are protected. The ministry has given assurances. The High Commissioner, who has a great new look,
well, I
also says they will do everything.
Look, South Africa depends a lot on the rest of Africa.
Okay.
Go and check our import figures. If you take China, and I think EU and United States, South Africa is next.
Okay.
They import so much into Ghana, including vegetables.
All right.
So I think that, look, both countries ought to deepen the level of cooperation, especially between Nigeria and South Africa. There seem to be some form of rival, not just this. You observe, I think they should deepen that process.
Thank you very much. And Doc, just some 30 seconds. You saw that Nigeria took some rather drastic steps, you know, and people felt that all other African countries must rally round and do like Nigeria has done. There was a delegation that was going for that summit. They recalled them. Yes, they recalled them.
The ambassador.
We told the ambassador
to
also as, I mean, drastic. Should something like that be going on to get them to sit up?
Not at all, not at all. International politics does not call for that. When matters like this comes up, what you need to do, that's why the AU is very important. Because if you leave it to the individual countries to resolve the issues, then you cannot manage the excesses that may occur. So AU must show leadership in this matter, so that all these small things would end. I mean, the way Nigeria is going is not internationally right.
Okay. Yes. All right. Thank you very much. Maybe the statement they've issued appears to retract or sort of recalculate their steps. Guy G in Newark, in New Jersey, says that South Africans will go through the eye of the needle to win back the trust of its fellow Africans. Kwame Esiedu says that, Sapon says that there is something about discrimination. It is often instigated by apathy from leadership and orchestrated by those in the lower echelons of society who the leaders have failed. What is happening in South Africa is just a manifestation of this phenomenon. Those attacking fellow Africans are doing so under the illusion that without these humans, their lot will improve. This is just warped logic. Their lot will improve when their leadership begin to recognize the need for social mobility. We'll take a break here, and when we return, we should be running straight into the PDS matters, and I'm trying to find out if we can now say PDS should represent problem discovered, solved. We'll be right back.